Hello. I believe that once you've considered some basic principles through which to execute a successful immigration policy, once you've reviewed objective data, such as shown in these charts, and carried out some basic analysis of it, then you'll conclude, like me, that the UK's immigration system needs fundamental reform and that our approach to asylum is broken and needs to be completely reset. Right now, in June 2025, it's impossible to ignore the rise of immigration as the key policy challenge for the UK government. We've seen record levels of immigration into the UK in the past 30 years. In red, we can see the hundreds of thousands per year which have come into the UK during that period, compared to nominal and, if anything, negative immigration in the 100 years before that. Of course, the figures before that period likely close to zero, except for periods of Norman, Huguenot, Irish and Viking immigration. We've seen immigration become the number one concern for UK citizens. Here we can see the orange line for immigration having been sky high throughout 2025 and just popping to the top and above the economy in recent weeks. We've seen the rise of Reform UK in the polls. Here we see the light blue line for Reform UK being way above the current Labour government and the current Conservative opposition. Reform UK is, of course, a relatively new party, with countering mass immigration being one of its primary policies. So what I'd like to do is go through the available data for each facet of UK immigration, set out some initial basic principles through which to execute a successful immigration policy, and then to carry out the sensible analyses to objectively test those principles against the real-world data we're seeing and to drive out sensible policies to take. This video will focus on the core principles of immigration, both legal and asylum, before later videos get down into the details to drive out specific policies to ensure the UK takes control and maximises the happiness of UK citizens. Now, really, all this groundwork should have been done at the point we decided to embark on this mass immigration experiment, to enable us to judge whether it was successful or not, to help immigrants know what was expected of them, and to enable the government to take corrective action before things got out of control. Unfortunately, those basic parameters weren't set, significant issues have arisen, either unnoticed or uncared about, and now the UK population is living with the negative consequences, and so is incredibly concerned about the direction the country has and is moving in. I'm really interested to hear what you think about these conclusions and actions, so please do start debating them in the comments section. And please do click like and subscribe so we can carry this debate through to some fascinating but entirely rational conclusions on the huge changes required to ensure that immigration delivers the value and happiness to the UK that we all want it to. And just to say that everything you see here is based on objective data, so I put all my sources in the notes in case you want to do your own analysis or to check mine. So let's start by going back to first principles and to think of the reasons why a country would have an immigration policy at all. Well, there are several valid reasons that come to mind. Firstly, citizens of a country might wish to marry a foreign national and live together in the UK. We might have short-term skills gaps that can't be filled quickly enough by training up our own citizens. We might wish to enrich our culture by seeking to have citizens of the world bringing the delights of their countries to enrich the happiness of our citizens, and also to bring the knowledge of how issues are solved in their countries so we get the best solutions in the UK. We might seek to enrich our economy by bringing in additional people. And lastly, we might choose to charitably take in citizens suffering overseas due to a temporary crisis and shelter them. Let's start with the last one first. According to the UNHCR, there are 123 million forcibly displaced people worldwide. That's the orange bar in the table. According to the World Migration Report, 3.6% of people worldwide wish to live in a different country to the one where they were born. Now, the world population is 8.2 billion, so we have 300 million people who would wish to live overseas. That's the red bar in the table. The UK population is 69 million at current counting, which is the green bar being dwarfed by the other bars in the table. And we have a globally high population density of 286 people per square kilometre. We're the 8th most densely populated of the 50 largest countries in the world. World population density is 55 people per square kilometre, or 58 if you exclude Antarctica. Our population density is 5 times the world average. We simply don't have space to fill. And if anything, to increase UK citizen happiness, We need to decrease the population, not multiply it by 3 or 6 times, which would leave us as the most densely populated large country in the world. So it's clear that the UK could not absorb every refugee, displaced person, or economic migrant, even if we wanted to. Now, if we wish to make a charitable contribution to the world, then we must choose who is most entitled from the enormous pools of potential candidates. And we should be seeking to contribute to hosting these temporary displacements in countries with much lower population densities than the UK's. And thinking along this track of thought, shouldn't we be considering who is displaced and who needs assistance? This chart from the UNHCR shows the age and gender distribution of those 123 million displaced people worldwide. We have pretty much exactly equal numbers of men and women, as you would expect, since bad events impact everyone and don't discriminate by gender. You get lots of children and a fair chunk of old people too. Let's compare that with UK government data on the UK asylum claims, split by age and gender. Where have all the women gone? Where are all the old people? Where are all the children? Getting statistical on this, there's a 0% chance that this is a random selection of the worldwide refugee population. No, this is a system which is systematically biased against what we in the UK culture would call the most vulnerable, the young, the old, and the women too. The current free-for-all system, where we hand almost all the power and enormous amounts of money to criminals, is not a fair system for bringing charitable assistance to the people most in need. We hope to help charitably, but all we got in return was criminality and a loss of trust in the whole system in the UK. And it's obvious that the current system can only bring criminality. How, as a destitute asylum seeker, do you find the thousands of pounds needed to cross the Channel, let alone getting across Europe and beyond? You have no choice but to either be a criminal before you arrive, or after, or most likely both. So the happiness of UK citizens is impacted by higher crime and by seeing our laws flouted, and it is not the right solution. So what other solutions could we use? Where could we better spend the billions currently being forced into the illegal asylum system? Well, the basic principle must be that we spend it where it brings the most happiness to UK citizens. And let's say we decide as a country to say, yeah, we're rich, and it makes us feel better, so we'll spend billions on asylum. Where should we spend it? Well, for me, there are 3 channels for this asylum money, all of which would help the asylum seekers directly and lead to greater happiness for UK citizens. These are: number 1, we fund asylum centres in the closest safe country to the homes of asylum seekers. This way, everyone in need can reach them. This enables asylum seekers to be housed in lower cost areas, so more can be accommodated for the same expenditure. This way you cut out the criminal element. This way we don't waste money on moving people thousands of miles across the world. This way we ensure families can stay together. This way we protect people's cultures. This way we enable people to return home as soon as possible. And anyone who turned up on our shores would be sent to the local asylum centre, so the demand for criminal assistance ends immediately. Number 2, we process all asylum claims in those local countries. Imagine if we as a country defined what a good immigrant should be, who would add hugely to the UK, and we then identified those people and brought them safely and legally to the UK in small numbers. We'd know they were going to contribute to the economy so we can allow them to work, doubly keeping them safe from crime. Imagine how much support there would be in the UK if we were saving truly exceptional people from harm, while simultaneously improving the UK economy and happiness. People would clamour for these asylum seekers. We would ensure we had full details of them, including their passports, so we know exactly who they are. Compare that to the current system where, it seems to me, destroying your passport and hiding your identity is action number 1 to maximise your chance of staying. And number 3 is spending on sanctions on the countries causing the issues and providing assistance to the countries suffering from catastrophic events, so we enable people to return home as soon as possible. We could also use these spending powers to ensure companies take back failed asylum seekers already in the UK, so we can restore confidence in the system and bring back public support to this charitable endeavour. So, we established that we should not have a free-for-all asylum system and should aim to temporarily resettle displaced people as close to their homes as possible, and just bring a small number of asylum seekers to the UK for a short period so they can contribute to the UK while they wait for their home country to get back to normal, and all the while using our asylum spend to improve those home countries. So the UK and impacted countries all end up happier thanks to our contribution. Let's keep going and look at the other 4 sources of immigration to a country. Item 1, yes, We should allow UK citizens to bring foreign spouses to live in the UK. This brings integration and cultural enrichment to the UK, as well as making individual UK citizens much happier. Obviously, this must be a marriage within UK cultural norms around things like age and blood proximity. The big caveat to add would be, if we as a country decide that immigrants from a certain country are on a red list, where no further immigration is allowed, in that case, a UK citizen would have to choose to go live in their spouse's country. We would not grant UK citizenship to their spouse. Item 2. Yes, again. If we had a clearly identified skills gap in the country, then we should allow immigrants to fill that gap in the short term. However, to increase UK happiness, we need to put in some criteria here. Firstly, the industries involved must demonstrate they are training and recruiting UK citizens to fill that gap within a reasonable timeframe, and then the visas for immigrants must only last for that long. As this chart shows, at no point in the last 50 years have we had less than 1 million people unemployed in the UK, and I believe with proper training and forethought, all skills gaps could be closed in the medium term. But there's no need to jet in overseas immigrants to do those jobs that UK citizens could do, while leaving millions languishing in long-term unemployment, leading to UK happiness falling. Secondly, we would go back to our definition of a good immigrant and use this to filter out immigrants who will not increase UK happiness. And of course, if we have the red list, then we would not allow immigrants from those countries to fill the gaps. Item 3. Again, yes. The UK population was and continues to be incredibly welcoming to immigrants in the right numbers. UK citizens love to go on holidays to experience other cultures. They love to eat a wide variety of food from different cultures. They enjoy mixing with people from around the world. And my analysis of the World Happiness Index shows that monocultures are not happy places. See my other video for details. On this chart, we see countries with a dominant religion representing 95% or more of the population being the least happy places on Earth. I think this is because dogma rules and free speech is curtailed in such countries. Sectarianism within the dominant culture is rise. So, to maximise UK happiness, we do want a vibrant immigration population, representing about 10% of the population, but we see happiness peaking in countries worldwide. However, we again need our guardrails to maximise UK happiness. We want to pick good immigrants. And just to be clear, we will be fleshing out this definition in subsequent videos. We want a range of immigrants, as adding huge minorities will again lead to conflict and unhappiness. And again, if we have our red list, then we will have to accept having less of those particular cultures than others. Section 4 is interesting, and one area where I think we get a lot of bad data presented to back up the UK's immigration decisions. Let's start with the objective facts. We must recognise that the UK is a big economy, the 6th in the world. And our GDP per capita, when we look at the 50 countries with a population of 30 million, is excellent too. So we do not need to bulk up our economy with low-skilled migrants just to get more GDP as some kind of political vanity project. Now, let's look at the micro level. What happens when we have a company that loses someone from their team? One minute we have a complete pyramid, and next we have a gap that needs to be fixed. The company has various choices. It could bring in another UK citizen to fill that role, or even better, promote someone internally and bring in another UK citizen to more easily fill the lower role and improve staff happiness and motivation since promotion opportunities are evident. So what happens if we parachute in an immigrant to take that high-paying opportunity? Well, the person who would otherwise have been promoted gets upset. And quite likely others in the team will do too, as their chance of promotion has fallen. And the UK citizen who would have been brought in to fill the lower vacancy now languishes on the dole and remains a net cost to state, as well as being sad, as their career remains at a dead end. So, in this situation, all we've essentially done is to import an unemployed person and make a bunch of UK citizens unhappy. So this cannot be a sensible policy. And let's compare our two candidates for this role, the Indigenous and immigrant person. As we've seen, the immigrant worker just creates an Indigenous unemployed person, leading to higher government costs. Then the immigrant has to find somewhere to live, which increases demand for housing and hence costs for all UK citizens. The immigrant adds the demand for NHS services and all the other things which are in short supply. Immigrant workers often bring unproductive family with them as well, further increasing government costs and demands on housing, the NHS and other infrastructure. Given we know we have a housing crisis, We know the NHS is buckling under the pressure. We know the government has a huge deficit already. The immigrant can only be a drain on the UK and lead to unhappy UK citizens. It makes no sense to import workers when UK citizens could fill these roles. Not to mention that high-earning overseas workers remit a portion of their excess income back to their home countries, and so we lose the benefits of all that spending and investment in the UK. But these figures are never shown, so the UK government instead makes it easier for companies to import overseas workers, rather than training up their own staff or helping UK citizens to get good jobs. So we should be very careful of celebrating even high-skilled immigration, as it likely has enormous hidden costs that aren't being openly or fairly explained to UK citizens, even if the impacts on housing and the NHS are becoming self-evident to everyone. Also remember that every person who comes to the country can only add to GDP, but they can decrease GDP per capita, which is how well off we actually feel, and they certainly can negatively impact the happiness of UK citizens. So yes, we would take an immigrant who wants to start a new industry bringing thousands of high-end jobs, but we shouldn't just look at GDP and think it must go up through immigration at the expense of happiness. And yes, of course, we would consider our good immigrant template and any red list of countries here too. So, in conclusion, across all the 5 types of immigration, we want to take control by limiting numbers, choosing for ourselves who comes into our country to ensure they meet some criteria, to be defined in this series, about who they are to ensure that they maximise happiness for UK citizens. This would likely include a red list where we decide on no immigration whatsoever from certain countries. We would favour a complete revamp of the asylum system, as it clearly does not bring those most in need to our shores and does not deliver the maximum help for the people in need worldwide for the money spent. And its current criminal operation model creates opposition from and unhappiness to UK citizens. In the next video, we'll start looking at the known data on UK immigration and see where simple common sense assumptions would lead us in terms of defining both the type of immigration we want and the amount of it to maximise the happiness of UK citizens. First off, we'll look into integration, where we'll find there's some surprisingly good data out there for which no one appears to have analysed or publicised. So please like and subscribe to ensure you follow this objective review of immigration through to its conclusions, and please join the debate. What do you think of the conclusions so far? Which data should I be looking at to test the success of current and future immigration policies?